So, Joe, you're an entrepreneur who you've been looking to bring in the hot seat for a long time because you're someone that has been at this for a number of years.
That means I haven't been very good, right?
You haven't been good, but let's start at the end, or like what the most recent is, and your company has raised millions of dollars. So let's just start with, as a CEO and a founder of a company that raises a few $1 million, how'd you spend your day today? What did today look like?
Guys, don't tell on me, right? We have a few of the team members here. It's actually pretty interesting because that changes depending on which stage of the company you're in and how much help you have around you, right? So starting up, you're everything. You're the product, you're the marketing, you're the sales, you're the face of the company, you're the investor relationships. As you grow, sometimes you get good help that takes some of that away from you. Sometimes you get bad help that makes you do more of it, and everything in between. And we are at stage, so if you look real quick, the past 4 years, and been at it, 2016 was our year where we had the concept. It was only Sean and me, the other shiny head in the back. And we had the idea, we started collecting the data, we started figuring out what to do with it. 17, we raised a bunch of money and had a product that went to market that was embarrassing.
Right, as it should be.
And 18, we put a very beautiful face on it, both the product and the people, and got it out there. 19 is our scaling year. That's kind of how I think of it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, but I wanted to get super tactical. Like literally, you had a day today. How did you spend your time?
Oh, so started the day by fretting about this event, which socks I'm gonna wear. That's important.
Great choice.
That's important.
I could have used your help.
I had 2 investor calls because we are working on raising some money right now. I had 2 potential partner calls. I was with the sales team working on our new PowerPoint presentation for sales scripts, partner calls, and in between everything else.
Everything
right?
else.
Yeah,
It's just a crazy world being the CEO of a high-growth company.
I get to talk a lot more than I used to be just doing stuff and getting things done. Now I just talk.
Yeah, in a CEO's journey, going from knowing nothing to, let's say, being the CEO of a 100-person company, and I say that just from experience, not the number, where do you think you are just in your learning as a CEO?
It is a journey, right? So, and every step of the road, even if you've been there before, every step of the road, it's almost a zero, right?
Always.
So Jeff Bezos has the famous line, right? Every day is day one.
Yeah.
And he goes across all his management team. Today is day one of whatever we are going to be, and I think that's. I mean, you would think that after being at it for 25 years, I would know how to hire people, and I hired hundreds of people over the years. Last year, we made 3 unfit hires. Yeah. Bad hires, right? And impacted our journey, impacted our trajectory, learned from it. And this year, we're going to make new mistakes.
Yeah. So every day is a new journey, a new opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
All that. I like it. So let's rewind a little bit. So before you brought the company where we described you being an entrepreneur, when was like the first time you had an entrepreneurial tendency, or you really thought that you might be someone that goes on this path?
So it happens every decade.
Okay.
And when you're as old as me, you get to do it a few times. So in the 1990s, right after college, I did start a company with a few friends that we did custom software, and we sold a bunch of that.
Yeah.
And then in the 2000s, finished my MBA, and I got the itch to do something, and I created a plan and went after that.
What was the itch? How did you come up with an idea? Was it something you've been thinking about? Did you deliberately go out to find a new idea? What was that like?
I think it started with, you go to an MBA. I don't know how many people went to an MBA or a master. You come out so energized. I want to take on the world, and I have $100,000 in debt that I need to pay off, and you start to go back. And I was working for Fortune 500s at the time, and we won a huge contract with Sun Microsystems. So it was me and my little team of geeks. I was an engineer who can talk. Team of geeks that won the contract. There was no way that we could have won. We're talking $320 million contract that we won. So me and my little team got pat in the back, got a thank you note from the CEO of a $16 billion company, and we are off to the next one.
Right.
And the sales guy was retired in the Bahamas, I think, the year after that. I think that was part of it, just wanting to be part of the action, if you would. And then I think with maybe the best way to describe it is I wanted the freedom to make my own mistakes. Maybe that's a good way to describe it.
How about the idea itself? Where did that?
It was literally just talking to a lot of customers where I was realizing that there is a need for what now is cloud. So realized the need in the market, listening to it. Where I was, there was no way that they were going to initiate that. So I created a business plan.
And how would you describe just cloud for the rest of the world that doesn't know what cloud is?
So before cloud was cloud. Cloud was basically taking your software, and instead of having it in a server in your own back room, you're giving that to someone else to host it, run it for you, and they are going to worry about the hardware, the software, the patching, the security, the data center where it's at, and that's cloud.
You know what's funny? We've had this conversation now once before and once now, and I thought every time you were referring to cloud, you were talking about the online rating. There's a company called Cloud that gives you an online rating.
That's my accent, man. You need to keep up. It's Cloud with a D.
Cloud with a D.
Oh,
man. So I'm glad I asked the question. Okay, so I get it now.
Yeah, it's Cloud with a D. So, no, I wish I thought of that one.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly. So we had an idea to take some of the enterprise systems and host them in a SaaS, like what we call now SaaS. And back then there was no SaaS. And I created a business plan for it. Here's the idea. I could not fund it. I was, that kid who cannot get funding, Fortune 500 is not going to do it. And I sent it out cold to 12 CEOs.
And what was your ask? What are you sending out?
Here's what I want to do. Here's what I can do. There was no resume attached to it. It was 15 slides of PowerPoint business plan. I think that you are someone I can do that with. And here's what I need. And just sent it out cold. 12 companies across the country, all the way from New York, Delaware, Dallas, to Phoenix, Silicon Valley. I got back 6 replies. Out of those, just straight CEOs. Had 4 meetings and got 2 job offers.
No kidding. Was there did you have any risk that they're going to take your business plan and of course, do without you?
Of course. Right. And some of the calls you get on, it's always a balance, right? And we get so paranoid about this as entrepreneurs. I'm going to go pitch and someone's going to steal my idea. Or here's an NDA before I give you my investors hate NDAs. No one's going to sign an NDA, and NDAs most of the time are not there. But the challenge with a lot of this is if you cannot stay ahead of the curve and come up with the next idea as people are following you, then you're always going to be paranoid about someone stealing today's idea.
That makes sense to me. So you get 2 responses back. And what happens
6
from there?
back, 4 meetings, 2 job offers.
2 job offers.
One was in Delaware, was in Phoenix, Arizona.
Is the job offer come join our company, we think you're smart, or is the job offer we want you to do this thing?
Come do this for us.
Cool.
For us, and build it with us. And at the time, I had no idea what stock options are. Couldn't even spell that. Didn't know what to ask for when I'm joining a company. Yep, here's a good salary, here's commission if you get it to where it gets to. And I went after it that way. So they didn't have job openings. They didn't have, this was not something that they were looking for, but we kind of created a job. Uprooted my family. We were in Virginia at the time, moved to the West Coast, and had a nice 6 years.
How many employees were they, and what was their revenue when you joined?
We were 17 and about 6.5–7 million in revenue. And in 6 years, for the major part, because of what we created together, we got it to 170 people and about 42–43 million.
No kidding.
Then we sold in 2011 and that was my 2000s in entrepreneurship, I guess.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that experience. So you bring an existing idea to a company. There's existing employees there that probably have their own ideas that they want to work on. I mean, what's it like in having the resources of a big company, not knowing anyone, and being tasked to kind of pave the way forward because you got the CEO's blessing?
It's not always easy, right? Because he had people who've been with him for 6-7 years, and you are the new guy who's coming in with this new idea, and he's having others work for you, with you, to make it work. And it's a fine line.
Yeah.
It's a very fine line, right? And whether you fit in the culture or not, whether you fit with the team or not, whether the team is going to do what it takes to actually make this happen. It's you live through it every day.
Yeah.
But human relationships are
How does
interesting.
just your experience as a leader, how do you approach those situations? Like, do you have a strategy going into it in terms of like winning people over, giving them a say, being a dictator? Like, how did you successfully go into?
What do you guys think? You should answer that. I should. Let's see. So, I do not think that there is one solution for every situation.
Okay.
And being a leader, depending on who you're dealing with, what they look like, what the situation is, you need to react different. If there is one, so we're going through some exercises right now trying to identify our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Who are we?
Right.
And one of the things that we kind of concluding is we are not a hurrah type company, which most startups come in and say, yeah, I want to be in the hurrah company, right? We're not that. We celebrate for 5 minutes and go back at it on the next one. We cry for 2 minutes and back at it again, and everything in between. And as long as you bring that, you don't get excited one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's just who we are. It doesn't mean that, and there's anything, company takes the shape most of the time of the founders.
Yeah.
If you're able to carry that forward. It's not the only solution, it's not the only way to do it. Lots of very successful companies and entrepreneurs do it their own way.
Yeah.
Larry Ellison, who I worked for a while, was or still is, completely different type of leadership, and he's very successful. Jeff Bezos is different as well.
Yeah.
So everyone's different, and as long as you know who you are and who will fit with you, that's a big deal. Because with us now, if we're hiring, if someone's coming in looking for the hurrah, they're gonna be disappointed.
Yeah.
And you learn that.
And they've got their own culture that works for them.
Yeah.
So going through the process, right, of bringing this idea to the company and building it and growing the team, looking back, was that the right decision for that business plan? Would you have done anything differently now that you have kind of made it to the other side?
Mike Tyson, I think, said that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yes.
And that happens every day, right? You start the day with a plan, and then circumstances have different ideas for you. So for this company, for example, we ended up acquiring 2 other companies. We ended up going in multiple directions. That was, at the end of the day, the resemblance between that and where we were or what we planned to do, there was very little.
No.
But you adapt and succeed and fail and learn, and as long as you keep going, that's the.
Yeah.
That's
so
the.
describe what it's like. So you said you grew it to 40 million and it did get acquired. So
Correct.
just personally, like, bring us back to the moment. What's it like? How many years was that from start to?
That was 6
finish?
years. That was 6 years. So it was. We got T-shirts.
We celebrated for 5 minutes.
And then we got our Fortune 500 new parent, who had completely different expectations for what the company should look like. They put us with 4 other businesses they acquired and said, okay, here's a portfolio. You guys are gonna succeed. I was the first one of the management team to leave. Leaving a lot of retention bonuses on the table because I just it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And 12 months later, the rest of the management team had left, including the CEO. It was a great story.
Yeah.
It was a great, reasonable exit for the investors and the founders, but was not sustainable beyond that.
Yeah. For you personally, it sounded like you had some success before that. You closed a $320 million deal. How did this compare? Was it more meaningful? Was it?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Absolutely, I was part of this, right?
Yeah.
I was part of what made it happen, what got it here. I made the mistakes. I was part of the team who celebrated hard and worked hard. With Fortune 500 companies, it's big companies in general, and I would go back to the large company for the right opportunity, but it's a different experience.
Yeah.
There is the company, that mythical
Right.
creature out there that is it,
Yeah.
and then the rest of us, and that's different. We're in a startup, small team. The rest of us are it.
No. Why do you think the CEO took a chance on you?
I think because I was taller than him. No. Chuck, his words, and he's 12 years older than me. His words at the time, he had done something very similar where he was. So he'd not built that company from scratch. He actually bought it out from a parent that was struggling with it.
Okay.
So he was the head of the division, and they did a buyout and took that company. People, if they see themselves in someone else, the rest becomes easier.
Yeah.
So I think he saw that a little bit. He saw initiative. He saw gold. He saw I'm willing to uproot my family and move all the way to the West Coast to join a $6 million company.
Yeah.
And didn't blink about all those risks. And
What'd you learn from him?
that I'm okay taking risks,
Yeah.
and I'm very comfortable more than most, and that it doesn't faze me. I mean, what's the worst that can happen kind of mentality.
Yeah.
It did impact my family life. That's a different story, but that's really, what's the worst that can happen? There's just.
Yeah, I like it. So you're West Coast. You had this exit within the company you were working for. Set the stage. You have a wife. Do you have kids at this point in time?
Yeah.
How old are they?
At the time, 1 and 4.
1 and 4. All right. So you're in the thick of things. Life is complicated. Life is busy. You just worked your butt off for 6 years and saw little success. Where's your head at this point in time? How are you going to spend your time?
It was so the results kind of. I transitioned from there to consulting and helping others try to do some of that. Tried to go on a similar journey, and I did that for about 3 years, traveling all over the place, and that's where the idea for what became Engage was incepted, was working with all the different companies that had interesting ideas.
Okay.
So I took it from Fortune 500 to joining a small company, helping it big, to freelancing, to starting completely from scratch.
What year did you start working on Engage?
Early 2015 was the time where I quit all of my full-time work and said, okay, this is going to be it.
Okay, and what did you see that others didn't? What were you betting on to take that risk?
I did not know that I thought I was smarter than others or had more resources than others. So a need, so technology can solve that need. Started to think about how we can put the two together. The original concept. I still have the paper where I drew it on. I was in the Kicking Chicken on King Street.
Okay, we're all good ideas.
And I was watching a basketball game, and I was thinking about this specific problem, and I, literally a yellow envelope that has some paperwork on it, and I drew it on it, and from there I I convinced myself that it's such a good idea that I'm going to go do it.
So what is it? What did you write on the napkin?
The original idea was specific to skills gap. So the idea that people have certain skills, companies are looking for different set of skills to satisfy jobs, and then there are education providers who have the ability to educate people, get them certified, or what have you. So why isn't there a marketplace or a way to get all these three people together to solve that problem?
Okay.
And there are lots of government initiatives and very well funded education programs that try to solve that. But my idea was how can we do it with technology? How can we look at someone's profile, look at what the job is looking for, identify where the gaps are, look for education opportunities that will fill those gaps, and say, instead of disqualifying people for jobs, we say, you're qualified to be a controller. Okay. But here is the list of things you're missing, and here is how to fix them. And you can become a controller in 6 months. I become a controller in a year and a half. But we all can, maybe.
Okay. So what do you do at this point? Do you go and invest money building it? Do you go into customer discovery and try to figure out if the problem is something people are willing to pay for? How do you get through that first iteration?
The first mistake I made is I didn't go to customers.
Okay.
I went to a bunch of other geeks like me and said, here's a problem, let's solve that. One of my first calls was back to one of my MBA professors who specialized in machine learning and decision modeling. His name is Sasha, one of the smartest people we know. Sasha, do you think this is solvable by technology? I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely, we can solve that by technology. And just to give you an idea, Sasha was one of the people who worked on the very original eBay bidding platform.
Okay. So no matter what you said, he would have said yes.
Exactly. So, but I was 10 years removed from school, and funny story there, the first thing when I first emailed him, and he was on my list of people to email if I ever came up with an idea, first thing he did, he went back and looked at my grades to make sure that he wants to work with me. So apparently I passed that part. So he came back and said, yep, let's talk. And again, I made the mistake of not talking to people who are in these situations. I didn't talk to companies, I didn't talk to education providers. I started building something and said, once I build it, I'm going to take it to them and they will fall in love with it.
Yeah. What's the downstream application of that approach?
Failure. But in the moment, and you have a little bit of time, a little bit of resources, people who are willing to help. Let's build it, and they will come. Let's build, because this doesn't exist. We're ahead of the market. I think they cannot even envision what that's going to look like. Let's lead the way in. So we built this, and towards the end of that journey, Sean back here had joined us as an architect, and he's like, "What's this? What are we working on?" But we got lots of false positives. Okay. We got lots of big companies saying, "This is oh man, if you build this, if it works, we'll be there." And we didn't at the time. We're not smart enough to listen to what they are really saying. They were really saying, "Oh, this is cute."
How do you know? How do you know the difference? So you work with a big company, they tell you they want feature A, the obvious. All right, well, how do you know to build feature A or to keep diving deeper into what it is they really want?
I think it's a sixth sense that good product managers and people who are involved in projects like this, just over time they develop. But there is, just like a doctor who's dealing with a kid. Are you in pain? Yes. Where? Everywhere. And trying to get from there. Customers do not always have the ability to tell you where it hurts. I use an example. You get in a car, you're buying a car, you get in a car and you sit in there and the sales guy's next to you and here's a customer like, this does not feel right. This is not the car I want. And they cannot verbalize why. So they start complaining about, where the cup holder is, right? Or the color of the dash.
Right.
And they never tell you, well, this is just not the car for me. This is not going to go anywhere. I don't want this car.
Yeah.
And it's level 2 listening is a concept that I think I learned to exercise over time, that I just go beyond what they're telling you. there's lots of engineers here. Anyone familiar with the Toyota 5 Whys methodology? 5 Whys, yeah, a little bit. So Toyota started in the 90s, I think it was, maybe even as early as the 80s, for the root cause analysis and identify problems. You ask 5 whys. So why, and then you take, once you get the answer to that, then another why is that, and then another why is that. And customers, when you're dealing with what we're dealing with, it's not engineering problem, it's a solution problem, don't like why.
Okay.
Why is pointed?
Yeah.
You know, why did you wear this?
Right.
That's
on the spot.
yeah. I don't know. Customers want what questions?
Yeah.
They want open-ended questions. They want to tell you stories, and then it's up to you to take that story and say, based on those 10 stories, here is what a common theme looks like, and here's what I learned from that.
Yeah.
But we moved cup holders so many times.
So how many months or years in were you moving cup holders and changing the paint before you had a realization that like this is a dud?
It was a year and $1 million. Year and $1 million. That towards the end of 2015, it was pretty much down to, we went up to 12 people. Now it's down to Sean and me, and we were literally weeks away from calling it a day.
Yeah. Why don't you just quit then? It seems pretty easy to do.
Never quit, man. Never quit, right? Never quit. And that's, you can pivot, you can change, but never quit. Pivoting is not quitting. And at the time, we had enough material to tell us there is a problem, and there, you know, what's his name? Steve something said, startups are entities, temporary organizations that are formed to find problems to solve that is big enough. So you're really looking for a problem big enough to solve. And we knew that there was a problem, we knew there was an audience, we knew technology can solve it. It wasn't that, but what can it be? And beginning of 2016, we got the concept of what we're doing now, and the big difference between this, it had a code name, we called it LROS. LROS stood for LinkedIn Recruiter on Steroids. Didn't have a company name, didn't have a website, and we started to go around with a few PowerPoints. At that point, you know, we're not talking 200 PowerPoints and MVPs. It was 5 slides, mostly pictures and captions saying, here's what LROS will do. And the reception, the feedback, the investors who've been saying no, who I respect, flipped the switch and said yes for something that didn't even have a name yet. And that was enough feedback for us to say, all right, we're going to work on this.
And how much of that was like a repackaging of everything you've done over the past year with $1 million versus cutting losses and paving a new way forward?
It was lots of learnings from what we did, but it was
Technology-wise,
hey, we moved from Azure to AWS, we moved to a whole new tech stack. We built it from scratch.
Okay, so what did you do differently this time around? You had a failure, you learned, you got this insight, right? We got a signal that we found a new way forward that's going to make our success. What do you as a leader in the team do differently this time around?
We focused on what the car is going to do, not the cup holders.
Okay.
It was ugly. It was the ugliest car that you can ever step in. Sorry, Sean. But people started paying for it, right? People started paying for it because it has a solution. It did something. It went from point A to point B in a way that they have not done before.
Yeah.
It had no doors, and there was 3 wheels, and the engine started half the time. But inside it, there was something new that they wanted.
Yeah.
And that's where, when people were paying for what we had in May of 2016, which was embarrassing,
right?
We knew that another validation point that this is really going in the right direction, and then from there we worked more and more. So we focused this time around. We focused on the engine,
Okay.
and we did very little on the outside. and the user interface and UX UI. Our UX UI was pathetic, but the engine was so strong that at the end of the day, that's what they wanted. So we were not selling and competing in UX and UI. We're selling and competing in data and analytics, and they were buying. And then 3 years later, really, we didn't start to really focus on our UX UI until this past year. And it's again back to that. What do people really want? How do you know? It's not. Some companies are built on better UX UI. And if that's who you are, identify that quickly and focus on that. Some companies are built on data. If you're that, on science. If you're that, you just need to know what it is and spend most of your time on this.
You said you positioned it at the enterprise level, right? I think a lot of startups are very hesitant or nervous to start there, right? I don't want to show a car that's not polished. I'll never buy it. We don't have the right security. There's a million excuses for why a startup should not sell to an enterprise. Why did you think differently, and how did you determine that was right for your market, for your product?
So we knew that we were going to end up enterprise, but we didn't start there right away. We started with smaller entities just to get what we need to get, but we Allstate was one of our first customers, launch customers, with very little to show them. Depending on the enterprise, depending on the level of relationship that you have, you can get enterprises to buy into what you're doing. The mistake we did in the first time around, we were building an enterprise solution, not selling it to enterprises. So this product market fit, complete disconnect. I'm building enterprise solution and selling it to companies that are 20 people, because that's the only one who give me lives a day. Second time around, we focused on this product is for this market. We are going to focus that market, and we're going to get a lot of no's and a lot of longer sales cycle. But if that's our market, just stay at it until you get that. And then once you have a logo like an Allstate or whoever it is, others start to pay attention to it, and that's what we were looking for.
One of the things you mentioned when we talked earlier, I really latched on to you. Describe product market fit as being a destination. A journey. What was it? A journey versus a destination? You're never there. You're always working towards. Say a little bit about what that means through your experiences finding your fit within the market.
So I love that question. You meet a bunch of startups like us here and say, all right, how are you doing? Which stage are you in? Like, we established product market fit. Like, really? Good for you. I'm going to ask you again tomorrow. Product market fit is not a destination. If you reach a point where you say, I'm done with product market fit, you're failing in 6 months or 2 years, whatever it's going to be, but that's the beginning of the end. Market change, customers change, technology change, competitors change, expectations of you change. That if product market fit continues to be a journey, continues to be what's next, what's tomorrow. Facebook has, in one of their core values, a beautiful one that I like, we actually adopted in our core values, says, if we don't invent what's going to kill Facebook, someone else will. So let's invent what's going to kill Facebook before others do. That's the mentality. We adopted that with one of our core values is adapting to change and actually invoking it. So if you cannot change, and if you're not starting change, and if you're too comfortable where you are, that's product market fit and I'm done. Definitely is a journey, but you have milestones and you get here and then you drive through it, but never just settle for saying I'm here.
Cool. All right, I'm going to ask a few more questions and we'll open it up for Q&A. As we started off, you raised a few $1 million at this point from investors out of Charleston. What are some things your company demonstrated that put you in a position to succeed to raise capital? Did you have crazy usage? Did you have crazy revenue? Did you have a good team? Did they like you? What did you do right to go raise that much money?
We did not succeed in any of these in ways that other companies don't, but I think we just had consistency. Consistency in our message, consistency on month over month where we're going. We were not killing it. We're not, tripling every 6 months or anything like that from revenue perspective. We're tackling a big problem we had very good science and people behind the science and the data, and they invested in that more than anything else. And then the timing of that, of going after talent-related related issues. So, you know, the what's the saying? You bet on the horse, the course, or the jockey. There is a fourth one that's missing that most investors look for, is the time that the race starts, and whether, you know, if you have the best horse and on the best course with the best jockey team, timing is a big one, and good investors look for all of those to a certain extent, but timing is maybe the most important one. And there is the guy who started Idea Labs, right? He did lots of studies, and so timing. You have to have a good idea, you have to have a good team, but at the end of the day, timing is what makes them or breaks most startups. So it was right idea, targeting the right market at the right time when the market is somewhat ready for it, but not too late. So
okay. So I'm gonna end on this question. Looking back in 2018, what was, from your company and you personally's perspective, what was your highest moment and what was your lowest moment?
So that's gonna be hard. We did a lot in 2018. So we raised our Series A, and we raised that. We are the first company of our size and stage in Charleston to raise money from out of the state, out of the region, not even the Southeast. So we brought in money from DC, from Indianapolis, from Chicago, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So that was a high moment. It's actually, but you do that and you grow and all this. At the end of the day, it's people and how people make you feel and how you make people feel that really you remember the most. My highest moment was hiring 3 people, which we hired right after the raise, that I felt are going to help all of us take us to the moon.
Yeah.
And the lowest moment was having to separate with all 3.
No kidding.
At the end of the year.
Wow.
For different reasons, by different ways. Yeah, same 3.
What did you learn from that? What do you want to do differently in 2019 so we don't have that high and low so
with that? I think, you know, one of it is definitely the culture fit and knowing who we are and who fits with us. Number 2, vetting a little bit better, and we are, you know, we help people recruit, so we should know that. But you learn it backwards. And the third is, you know, who fits in big company versus small company, who's successful big company. The right energy, not all the energy is right energy. There's is anyone from Centio here? So the guys from Centio, so they have a great little assessment tool. But they have, one of the things they teach the people is extroverts interview better than introverts, and they get jobs easier.
Okay.
And introverts do not interview as well.
Right.
But they can be as successful as others. So do not let shiny extroverts enamor you. We got enamored by that a little bit and ended up just making bad fits for what we needed. So.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, we got some time for Q&A. Who's got the first question out there? Right there.
Why are you in Charleston? And when you were raising money, did you get any pressure from potential investors who would invest if you were willing to move?
I'm in Charleston because of family. So 10 years ago, we decided this is where we want the kids to grow up for family reasons. And I was traveling full time, so it didn't really matter where I lived. So it made it easier back then to make that decision. Yes, the answer is yes. And we're recording, so I'm not going to say who that is, but one of the names that if I say the name of that VC, everyone will say, oh yeah, of course I know who that is. Based out of Boston, they sent us, we went down the path with them very, very heavily. We went up to Boston, due diligence, everything. And their final conclusion was, I still have that email, and when we go IPO, it's going to be playing on the big NASDAQ screen. Promise it will. It said exactly this: love what you're building. The team is awesome. The traction is impressive. We have a thesis in your space that we're standing behind. but we cannot write a $3 million check to a company in Charleston. That's exactly what it said. And that was a low moment. That was a low moment in 18.
You've got less than half a dozen employees, so in theory, moving would not have been a big deal. I mean,
not really.
logistical.
Yeah, we're all, we have roots here, and this is where we were. SCRA is one of our valued investors that carried us through the time that maybe we would have no longer been here. Commuting is possible, but moving was not an option. So yes, there was a lot of that. But then we, one of our backers now is Revolution, the Steve Case fund, and it's Rise of the Rest is the name of the exact fund. And his whole thesis is finding tier 2, tier 3 cities like Charleston where to go invest, because that's where you still have the same talent, you have great companies, you can get people to live in places like this who are hungry for funding, and you still can succeed, and that's his thesis, and Charleston was one of the places he goes after. So, yeah, in 2017, so 2 years ago, 75% of VC funding went to 3 states in the country, and 25% was for everyone else. So he's one of the ones who are leading that and changing that, and we'll prove him right.
That's right. Great question. Peter?
There's a lot of interest, I know, among employers in particular to find people who are quote, job ready. Are you finding that there's other competition, direct competition in your space at this point? Or are you still sort of leading the pack?
So it's, we're leading the pack for the next 24 hours. Ask me again tomorrow. It's one of those, right? We picked a very niche problem to solve, and we went really deep in that problem. And that was, again, one of the differences between our kind of first go around. We went wide and shallow. The second go around, our science identifies when people are going to quit job or potentially respond to a recruiter. That's what we do. And we studied that to a level that no one else had studied before, ever. Collected the data that we need to do that, got the science, got the proof points behind it. So that specific problem, to go as deep as we did over 4 years and spend as much R&D and get the right people around it, it makes it a little bit harder for others, but it's,
Just one quick follow-up. Your customers are principally corporations, or are you finding executive recruiters who are also interested?
Both. We're about 50-50 between the two. Yeah, between recruiters within corporations versus staffing agencies, executive search firms, and so forth.
Thank you. All right. Who else has a question? Yes.
When you were pitching those CEOs, it was a while back, and with the 5-side pitch deck, what was like the thing or the couple of things that really you think kind of knocked it out of the park and got it noticed?
I think, so this is very similar to, I don't know if anyone presented to an analyst like Gartner before. If you prepare right, you're replaying to them things that they already believe, but you're just saying, I'm going to go do it for you. If you're replaying to them some very foreign concepts, the likelihood of succeeding becomes less and less. But if you know your audience well and you're pitching, you're telling them about problems that they're already facing or something that they're already thinking or how they thought about it. So knowing, and there's no excuse not to know who you're talking to anymore, right? There's just, you can know everything about anybody. And I think that's what resonated with those people. They were already thinking about this, and you reiterating them some ideas that they already know is going to work. You just need to go do it. Maybe that's one thing I learned from that experience. Of course, back then I didn't know that.
So I'm actually going to school right now for data analytics and data management, and I was just curious, as someone who's running their own startup and had to deal with hiring decisions and things like that, just in the field in general, and kind of people that you've talked to, what kind of skills do applicants have that jump off the page at you and say, okay, this person knows what they're talking about, they're well prepared to adapt to this particular industry, this field in the 21st century and beyond?
Tell you the story. So we just hired a superstar data scientist sitting right there. He went to Clemson, but that's okay. So when we were looking to fill that role, and I think he knows these stats, but hopefully his head doesn't get any bigger. But we literally got 900 applications. 900 applications, both from us looking for people using our platform in addition to just people applying. 900 applications for that role. We are in a hot area where we're saying all the buzzwords and lots of people want to interact with us. And we, drilled it down. Nick, some of the things that he has done that attracted us to him. Number one, he sent us a link to his own personal website. That had sample projects that he worked on. That's cool, do that instead of just looking at a resume. The projects that he worked on were very applicable to what we're doing. You're not going to find exactly someone who worked in HR tech, service recruiting with the same data. You're not going to find that. And he was very successful in highlighting those in his discussions with us and his resume. So just find a way to differentiate you from others, whether that's a website, whether that's, here is sample code, or, hey, by the way, I already solved one of the problems you're trying to solve. Look at this solution. That's, especially if you're coming from the outside and cold, that will set you apart. Resume, I don't care how good the resume is. We don't look at resumes anymore. I literally make a point, depending on the hire, of not reading resumes or looking at people's LinkedIn profiles until I meet them in person. And then we just start to know each other right at that point, and get, build it from there. So just get as much practical experience as you can and set yourself apart from people who dump their resumes everywhere.
Cool. All right, 2 more questions. Alex.
Uh-oh.
So I have a little bit of inside information because I know Joe outside of Startup Growing, and Joe actually mentors the Harvard Startup Accelerator when we run his classes. So I've had the pleasure of working with you over the past 2 years, but I've never asked what is it about the accelerator or startup life in general that makes you want to give back your time to these companies in our community? Like, what is it that yes, this is
paying it back. I'm not even paying it forward. The number of people who helped me, the number of people who took ideas, even invested money, time, all of that to make us who we are and get us to where we are, that's a debt that going to be around forever. And Charleston, outside of Charleston, big cities like Atlanta, where we have another office now at the RTP, or Charlotte, there is lots of people, lots of resources that you can get. Charleston is not here. So being able to answer just simple questions. Should I form this as an LLC or a C Corp? Right? The simplest questions of any question that you was, or should I hire a product manager or a developer first? Or these little things that early on you struggle with, and here's what I did, and here's what worked for me, here's what I think will work for you. It's paying it back, and it will take a long time for me to do that.
All right, we got time for one more question. Anyone? Going once, going twice. Simon.
Do you have a favorite book that you've read recently?
Good ending.
Do you have a favorite book that you've read recently?
I give you 2, and they're both kind of related to the whole AI and the future and what have you. Life 3.0. Strongly recommend that book. 3.0, written by an MIT professor who is the head of an institution called the Future of Life Institution, and they are funded by Elon Musk and Google, what have you, and they literally study what the future of life may look like. So he goes through the different scenarios of what AI is going to do, what have you. So definitely that. And then the guy who wrote Sapiens has another book now, Homo Deus, right? Homo Deus. Fascinating. And they both talk about kind of the same thing with the future, but one is addressing it from academic and engineering and technical side. The other one is historian, who is using history to help you think about what future may look like. So yeah, those are two amazing books.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Let's give Joe another round of applause.